Good evening, and welcome to the end of the year question and answer video. As you can see, the festivities are in full effect as we're gathered around the fire, and I'm wearing my classy Christmas blazer. In this video, we're just hanging out, and I'm going to answer some of your questions. I don't have a script for this video, I don't even have an outline, I don't really expect it to get 1 million views. This is just our end of the year hangout session for everybody who's joined my cult of guitar learning this year. So let's get started. Right off the bat, I want to say something at the beginning of the video that I normally say at the end of the videos, and that is, thank you for watching. Every year at the end of the year around Christmas time, I normally think back on all the cool stuff that happened the past year. And in 2023, the coolest thing that happened to me was all of you coming into my life. You guys have chosen to watch the videos and subscribe to the channel, and doing this has just been so much fun. So thank you. But anyway, let's get into answering your burning questions. The first question is from Calisthenics Mastery. He asks, how should I try to learn a song? Like learning it per bars or practicing different parts of the song individually? Also, how should a practice routine look? First of all, to answer like one of the most common questions I got, I'm putting together a practice routine video. I started on it and then realized what a big undertaking it was. But for all of you burning for a practice routine video that is coming soon, I've not forgotten about it. As far as how you should approach learning a song, I usually approach it per guitar part. So I usually learn the entire song, but I'll learn like just the rhythm part. And then I'll add in like another rhythm part if there's, a B rhythm part. Maybe it has, fills or something. And then finally I kind of work my way up to the lead part, and I finish the song by learning the solos. But I learn the whole song each through on each pass. So that's what I would recommend, and thank you for the question. Nate Elliott asks, what is your favorite guitar that you've ever played? Well, Nate, that would be the 1937 Martin D28 that I played at Carter Vintage Guitars a couple of months ago. I made a video about it. Go check it out. It was an insanely great guitar. I kind of understand the hype around vintage guitars now. Thanks for the question. JM's question is, how did you go from seemingly no YouTube presence to such a polished professional presentation so quickly? Is this a hobby or would you like to make it your only job? First of all, thank you, JM, for the question. It's very kind and I'm really flattered. As far as making polished videos goes, I've kind of been into like cameras and photography and filmmaking for a while, and so I would say that I kind of picked up on some of the like the basics of good lighting and decent audio and that kind of thing. As far as whether or not this is a hobby or if I'd like to make it my only job, for now it is a hobby. I try to make the best videos I possibly can, and I hope that that results in hundreds of millions of subscribers and I become ridiculously wealthy. All of that would be great, but when I think about the hopeful future success of this channel, I really try not to think about it. I care more about this channel being good than I care about it being successful. And I don't mean to say that, good channels aren't successful or that successful channels can't be good or anything like that. I think that those two normally go, hand in hand. But I mean to say that it's very important to me that this would be the kind of channel that I would watch and that I would be a fan of. And I hope that success follows as a natural consequence of that. So to answer the question, it's a hobby right now in that it's not my living. But I don't often consider like the long-term success of the channel. I think more in terms of the long-term quality of the channel. So I hope that's a satisfying answer. Thank you again for the question. It's very, very flattering. Thank you. Phil Brook asks, I'm sure you've come across this a few times in your journey, but what do you do when your learning gets stagnant and it feels like you're not making any progress? Thanks ahead of time. Thanks for the question, Phil. That happens to everybody, the dreaded plateau, and it especially happens to intermediate players because, when you're a beginner, everything is new and there's a million things to learn, but as you progress, you've started to learn some of these things, and so the information becomes a little harder to come by. It can be harder to progress. For me, I usually try to do one of two things. Number one is I'll go into a different genre than I have been practicing entirely. I'm basically a blues guitar player. That's kind of my home genre that I like playing a lot. But if I kind of get hung up and I can't progress, I'll try to focus on something else. I've been a little bit trying to get into like bluegrass recently. I'm not very good, but when you pursue a new genre, it can kind of help to refresh and recontextualize a lot of the stuff that you have been practicing. When it becomes fresh again, it's easier to progress again. The other thing you can do that I'll do sometimes is just focus on practicing songs. For me, at least, one of the big problems that comes with the progression plateau is guitar kind of starts to lose its fun. But again, for me, learning songs is the most fun thing I get to do because, I love music more than I love guitar. And so if I can kind of play the music that I love on the guitar, it makes it more fun for me. But either way, when you hit a plateau, usually the answer is to kind of come at guitar differently, is to approach the instrument with like a different perspective. And those are the two methods I use to get that different perspective. Thank you for the question. This next question is from Womp, and Womp asks, what is a baseline set of skills to develop to be able to hang out in a group of musicians and play with them without being completely embarrassed? That's actually a really good question. I'm going to say that the most important thing is having decent rhythm. You don't have to be Nile Rodgers, but if you are just totally lost when it comes to a metronome, then trying to sync up with other musicians is going to be a million times harder. Outside of that, you probably want to learn the 5 positions of the pentatonic scale and be able to, improvise enough with those. I'm imagining that when you're playing with other musicians, you might be doing some jamming, and so, you don't want to be stuck in positions 1 and 2 of the pentatonic scale for the entire jam. And as far as chords go, you're probably going to want to understand open chords, bar chords, and 7th chords. The final thing would be, and again, I'm assuming that you're jamming with other musicians here, you're going to want to have a good enough ear to be able to figure out what key a song or a jam is in. I know from experience that it can be embarrassing to be the guy who's like, hey guys, what key are we in? Thank you, Womp, for the question. Noah Scott asks, what are some things you say to yourself when you're doubting your ability to play guitar or when you just feel that you're not improving? I've struggled with feeling like I'm bad at guitar from time to time and I get discouraged. This can lead me to put my guitar down for periods of time, which just compounds and reinforces my belief that I'm not capable of learning it. Thanks, mate. Thanks for the question, Noah. If you're facing a plateau, refer to what I answered to Phil's question. As far as not feeling good about your playing, the thing that I do is try to figure out like one thing in your playing that you're like a master at. So I've been in a couple of bands, and some of those bands have had really, really good guitar players, and I was the rhythm guitar player in those bands. And when you're the second best guitar player in a band, it can be really easy to feel like, you're not a very good player at all. But in those situations, that's where I latch on to like one thing or a couple of things that I'm really, really good at. And these can be like underrated things. So I would tell myself, I might not be like the fastest player or like, have the ability to improvise over the most complex chord progressions, but, I'm going to be the guy that has really good rhythm. And I'm going to know my part, and I'm going to understand the song, so that if anybody needs to know, what chord we're on, or like how that chord functions or something, I have the answer. What you'll find is you'll take a little pride in that, and you'll practice that, and you'll probably practice everything a little bit more, and it'll actually help you improve. So in times of doubt, latch on to like 1 or 2 aspects of your playing that you're really good at, and own those and feel good about them, and hopefully that'll keep you, encouraged. Thank you for the question. Next question is from Haynes Elder. Haynes asks, when in my guitar learning journey, should I pick a genre to focus on? Should I even? Is math rock a viable option? So I'm of the opinion that you build your style on guitar by the songs that you choose to learn. So if you are into like metal, for example, and you start learning metal songs, even from the beginning, then there you go. You've kind of become genre specific. The fundamentals are going to stay the same across whatever genre you choose. And that's kind of what I try to talk about in the roadmap, is the fundamentals that are going to stay consistent no matter what you choose. But again, if you're learning all metal songs, then you're going to be applying those fundamentals to metal songs, and then metal will kind of become your genre. So to answer your question, I don't think there's any such thing as getting genre specific too early. If there's a genre that gets you excited about guitar playing, then that's your genre. Get specific. Math rock is going to be a little harder to start with. It comes from prog rock, so you're going to have a really good understanding of music theory and a really, really good understanding of like rhythm and, compound time signatures and polyrhythms and, weird time signatures. So understand that'll be a little bit of a challenge, but if math rock is what gets you excited to play guitar, then, I say go for it. Polyrhythms aren't rocket science. Have fun. Don't ever stop yourself from having fun with guitar. Thanks for the question. Hannibal Herman Hove asks, what inspired you to start playing guitar, and what inspired you to share your knowledge on YouTube? Honestly, I don't know what inspired me to start playing guitar. Nobody in my family really plays instruments. I was playing violin at the time. I played a violin for my school. My school had a really, really good music program. And in 8th grade, I just looked at this guitar that was sitting in the corner of my room that my dad had gotten me like years before. It was a real cheap guitar. And I just decided that I wanted to learn how to play Sweet Home Alabama for no reason. And I kind of haven't stopped since. As far as what inspired me to do YouTube, filmmaking is a hobby of mine, writing is a hobby of mine, and guitar is a hobby of mine, guitar being, the chief among those. And YouTube is kind of the perfect way to combine those. So it just seemed like a no-brainer. Mad George Productions asks, caged versus triads versus scales. Which is more useful to learn first, and how do you work these skills into songs with little fills, etc.? So the short answer is scales. You should learn scales first. So the way I think about it is when you learn scales, you're sort of defining the boundaries within which you can play. You're learning all the notes in a key. That's what scales are. And when you learn your caged shapes, that's going to help you visualize triads. And when you can visualize triads, that'll allow you to kind of target chord tones. So if a scale is all 7 notes that you could play in a key, visualizing triads are going to allow you to identify the 3 important notes that you can play in that scale. So from that perspective, scales are sort of the bedrock of music. And, the cage system is just a tool to understand triads, and triads are just a tool to identify chord tones, which is a tasteful way to play guitar, in my opinion. As far as how to incorporate these skills, just exactly what I just said. So you just want to identify chord tones in your solos, in your fills and that kind of thing. And the other 2 things, triads and caged, help get you there. Very good question. Thank you. Viri714 asks, how long have you been playing guitar, and how long would you say it took you before you got good or good enough to play on your own? This is actually a really good question, and I plan on making a video on this at some point. How long does it take to get decent, I've been playing guitar for about 9 years, and it took me a little less than a year to get kind of at that lower intermediate decent level. Now, I had some things working for me and some things working against me. Things I had working against me are, probably the common things that work against everybody, and that's that there was no direction. And it's a big part of why I started my channel. I want to provide context around guitar ideas so that people can, progress faster. But as far as things that were kind of working in my favor and why I was able to progress pretty quickly was, like I said before, I played violin before I played guitar, and so I already had a lot of what you would call chops. I had a lot of dexterity in my left hand and a decent understanding of music already. Although on this topic, I want to emphasize that you shouldn't compare your progression to the progression of others. I knew folks who started guitar roughly at the same time that I did, and that I progressed faster than, and I knew people who progressed faster than me. And so, not to sound like a Facebook post, but comparison is the thief of joy, and everybody progresses at their own speed, all right? And nobody's ever satisfied with their playing. So always just remember to have fun. And if progressing really quickly is fun for you, then try to pursue that. But understand that, learning guitar is one of those things that really does just take a lot of time. Thank you for the question. ARoar170 asks, is there a good way to reset bad muscle memory from practicing without a metronome? Yes, practice with a metronome. MoverCube asks, what made you choose the guitar? Have you tried other instruments before? Yeah, I have tried violin and piano before. I don't play much violin anymore, although I do still think it would be a little bit fun sometimes. I think piano would be a lot of fun, and it's something I want to get a lot more into. There's just so many hours in a day, and I care a lot more about guitar than any other instrument. Next question is from Zach Soya. He asks, what do you listen to? Is it normal that after 3 days of owning my first guitar, my fingertips are numb? First of all, legally, everything on this channel is for entertainment purposes only. If your fingers are numb, you need to consult a physician. However, in the hypothetical sense, if somebody I knew who had just gotten a guitar had numb fingers in the first couple of days, if they were playing a lot, I probably wouldn't be too alarmed about it. As far as what I listen to, my favorite artist of all time is Tom Petty. Billy Joel is right there. I'm a huge Dire Straits fan, huge Eric Clapton fan, big Beatles fan. I listen to a lot of Electric Light Orchestra, a lot of Bruce Springsteen, a lot of Elton John. As far as new bands go, I love Tedeschi Trucks Band. I think Blackstone Cherry is severely underrated. Wolfpack is a lot of fun. But it's important to remember that nobody will ever be as good at anything as Tom Petty was at creating great music. Thank you for the question. Josh Fuled asks, how to survive as a musician? At what point you'll be able to finally earn some dollars from your work? And what should people know and what skills they're supposed to have before entering the money-making process? As far as skills you should have before you make money go, these days, it can be anything. If you're entertaining or if you know how to communicate your skills really well, no matter what skill level you're at, then you're going to be able to make some money. As far as how to survive as a musician, the number one most underrated thing is personal finance. I'm not trying to be funny or make a joke about how guitar players are always broke, Really, if you're trying to make money from music, then the number one thing that you can do is get really good at managing your money and develop a lot of discipline around money. Mary Spender actually made a video about this recently where she was talking about the importance of not quitting your day job if you're just starting out. And I 100% believe that. There's a lot of different things to say on this subject, but just understand that today, success as a musician might not look like getting signed to a record deal and running onto the roof and screaming, "I made it." Sean Robinson asks, how would you dumb down complex songs to make coffee shop versions with open chords? Well, Sean, a lot of times you can't do that. Theoretically, you might transpose a song to a key with a lot of open chords, but there are no keys with totally open chords. This is why we learn bar chords. Unfortunately, complex songs are complex for a reason, and open chords aren't going to be able to get you there. But if you're interested in learning about bar chords that can get you there, then I made a video on that, so check it out. Thank you for the question. Jacob asks, where should I rest my palm while playing? Seems like it depends what strings you're playing. There's heaps of vids about picking, but they rarely talk about hand placement. Let me get a guitar. All right, Jacob, this is hard to get the guitar into playing position, but try to think about resting the fleshy part of your palm here, like right behind the bridge, okay? And it does kind of depend on string placement. So if you're playing the lower strings, then yeah, you're gonna be right here behind the bridge. But if you kind of transition up to the higher strings, don't be afraid to bring your palm onto the lower strings to help mute them and, kind of move your anchor point there. Maybe I should make some more picking videos. Rocco Myers asks, why do beginners and intermediate players focus on bar chords while the pros we see performing seldom use them? That's actually a really good question, Rocco, and I can explain. Pros do use bar chords, they just don't always look like the same bar chords that we learned to start with, but they are based on those bar chords, and that's why we learn them. To give you an example here, I could play a B minor bar chord, but if I was playing this in the full context of a band, like on stage or in the studio or something, I'm not going to need a lot of these lower notes. They can serve to kind of muddy up the mix. So I might just play these top three notes, in which case my bar chord, which would normally look like, the 6-string root bar chord looking like this, I might only play it as this. Bot Gaming asks, are you in a band? Not right now. I used to be in a band. Before that, there was some high school bands just kind of messing around and that kind of thing. But I was in a serious band in college. We were a decent cover group. We called ourselves The Chain. And I'm a pretty good bandmate because I ended up marrying some of that band. That band is how I met my now wife, McKenna. She was the singer in that band, and I played guitar, obviously. One of the weird things for me is that I've actually never started a band. Even going back to my first kind of messing around bands, I've always been asked to join a band. But I would like to start a band of my own from the beginning at some point. But, we just moved to a new city, so we're still kind of getting acquainted with the local music scene. But if you're a bassist or a drummer or a keyboard player in the Southeast U.S., my email is in the description. Hit me up. All right, you guys, there you go. That's all the questions. I appreciate everybody who asked questions. I'm sure we'll do this again, and I'll get to more questions next time. Thank you all again for watching the channel and being such a really supportive and awesome audience. I think I have like the nicest YouTube comment section out of the whole website. So thank you all. You guys are the best, and as always, thank you for watching.